walk that out. So many times we find people that are doing something because they went to college for it, but they really don't love it. Well, that's because they weren't created to do that. So I like to help people.
Everybody, and welcome back to Insights with Marsha. And by the way, hit that subscribe button because we have amazing guests coming up and you don't want to miss any of them, including today. It's the Ronna and Marsha team again.
Yay!
Ronna is my producer, but she also has a business of her own and is a very smart lady. So every now and then I go, Ronna, you have got to come play with us and teach everybody something, because little do y'all know, while we're filming right now, it happens to be Women's History Month. So this is a show about women, but you men can learn a lot about how to deal with us women if you pay attention. But Ronna, tell everybody again, what do you do when you're not here?
So what I like to do is I have a company called Perspective Quest, and my passion, which we talk about a lot on the show, is helping people discover who they were created to be and really to walk that out. So many times we find people that are doing something because they went to college for it, but they really don't love it. Well, that's because they weren't created to do that. So I like to help people figure out what it is they were created to do. And then I also help organizations create their, how to increase their profitability and processes. And so that's what I do on the side with my company called Perspective Quest. And I love helping Marsha and some other clients that I have as well.
Yes, yes. So first we're going to just do a little storytelling. Our other producer said, who is an important woman in your life? So you go first.
Probably the most important, impactful woman in my life is my grandmother. She basically raised me from an early age. I would go spend every Friday night at her house, and she would pick me up from nursery school. And I remember as early as being 3 years old. That was back in the day where we didn't have to wear seatbelts and things. And so we'd be driving down her street, and I'd be standing right in the middle, and she'd have her little arm holding me up so that I wouldn't fall down. And we just had the best time. We would cook and we would sing and we would dance and we would play outside, and just so many fun memories. But she really helped me discover who I am. She really helped impart a lot of good truths to me that I still carry with me today. And she's one of my favorite people. I called her Baba. And so she's one of my favorite people that I like to refer back to.
So if you had to say one particular message for life that you got from her, what would it be?
You know, the most important thing that she taught me is that you have to forgive people and really release them and not hold an offense against them, because you don't know what they're dealing with. You don't know what they're going through. And just to forgive them and to know that you're a better person when you forgive people for what they've done to hurt you.
Yeah.
Early on, she taught me that.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know if anybody's watched Poldark. We're watching a series called Poldark. And the brother and sister, Francis and, oh gosh, can't remember her name. The brother doesn't like this captain of a ship she wants to marry, so she runs away with him. But she's living in the same town now where the ship comes and goes. The brother did something atrocious to his cousin. All of a sudden, all three of those people, including the captain, who he had written the sister off in his life because she got married without his approval, and it's suddenly thrown in his face that he had done something wrong and that he needed to forgive her for what she did wrong. And it just suddenly he realized what you just said. We all screw up in life.
We all screw up.
We need to forgive everybody, because if we think we're perfect, it's not happening.
It doesn't mean that what someone did to you was right.
Right.
It just means that once you learn to forgive them, it releases you, and you don't have that heavy thing in your heart any longer. Just forgive them and move on down the road.
Yeah. So whenever I have to forgive somebody, I'll think, okay, think of some of the bad stuff you've done in your life, and I'll go, okay, if I did that, I can let that person do what I'm. Okay. So mine is my mom.
Oh.
And the whole time from junior high on, well, even before that, I've got a book coming out in the fall.
And I'm so excited about that.
Thank you. So there will be a lot in there about mom and dad, because they were really motivational kind of people and read all the positive stuff. But once mom started learning psychology, which led her to developing Naturally Slim, because she realized it wasn't the food, it was when and how we ate it. Really, everybody in the world eats food, but not everybody has a weight problem.
Mhm.
And she started learning. So to me, it was just fun, all the little techniques I learned for how to just deal with people and work with people. Like, I can remember her telling me when I started dating, she goes, "Men love to talk about themselves." She says, "They love it. Just ask him questions about himself all night long. And at the end of the evening, he'll think you're wonderful." And then I did that and it worked. But then I realized everybody's like that.
Everybody, yeah.
So whenever I go to a party or somebody I haven't met, and then besides the fact, I love finding out about different people,
Uh-huh.
but to say that's one of the little techniques she gave me, so many little techniques, like don't say to somebody, "Why did you do that?" The minute you say why to somebody,
Think
gets on the
it.
defensive. Just say,
Yeah.
"I noticed you did such and such." Like, what's that about?
Mm.
Well, I just said what. That's better, not why. But anyhow, little principles like that, I just learned, so much of psychology, and sometimes I'll just hear them just now talking about it, and I thought, I learned that when I was 16 years old,
Uh-huh,
whatever.
exactly.
So a lot of times I think it is our, you know, motherly kind of figures, and then
Mhm.
sometimes later in life, we take on mentors,
Yes.
and
I've
that
had mentors in my life that, I wouldn't be where I am today if not for them. The patience that they had when they were spending time with me to help me grow, whether it was in business, whether it was in spiritually or just in life in general. They took time to help me learn what I didn't already know. And
Mhm.
so now I like to try to be that for other people.
I was just thinking that Ronna always has lots of young ladies that you run groups for and all kinds of stuff. You are just the world's hugest mentor.
Well, I'm not the world's hugest mentor, but
Well, and
but I do love people, and I think because I've had such an impactful life of people really pouring into my life, I wanna give that out. I wanna
yeah,
give that back to other people.
yeah, yeah, and it's important. So, I'm gonna encourage our audience, if go mentor somebody. You may think you don't know anything, but you do. You know something about something,
Mhm.
even if it's just starting out with your children.
Yeah, and you
Mentor.
can change somebody's life
Yeah,
just by spending a few minutes with them a week.
yeah. So today you came up with a great topic for being Women's Week, and if I had to give it a title, or maybe you gave it this title, "The Hidden Pressure of Being Capable: Why Strong Women Quietly Carry More Than They Should." And I'm even going to say a lot of women carry more than they should, because we are up making lunches, cooking breakfast, getting kids in the car to take them to school or getting them to the bus stop, and then we go do our full-time job, and then we come home and we start a load of laundry and stuff. Women have to be very capable, but in particular, you're looking at kind of also the little segment of these strong women that you go, "Oh, she's good at all this.
Mhm.
Let's go to her."
Yeah.
Tell me about this. What
Well,
you
I
think?
think I think what we find is I know that you've been in situations where all of a sudden somebody asks you to do something and you've been able to do it and you've done it successfully. Then the next thing you know, they're asking you to do something else. They're asking you to do something else, and before you know it, because you're capable, you feel like that your calendar is stacked and your schedule is full, and you're like, "How did this happen?" And I think a lot of times women who are capable are drawn into this responsibility, this unnatural responsibility. Women were naturally created as caregivers and they like to be helpful and they're equipped to be able to do that. And so they just are gravitating to situations where they could be a blessing, where they could solve a problem, where they could rescue someone. So what happens over time is they keep doing that without balancing it with their life and what their alignment should be, and so it's harder for them to back out of that, and before you know it, they're not sleeping good at night, they're anxious, they're not eating right, they're stress eating, you've talked about
Yeah.
that before, and so it just becomes hard for people to back out of that without really evaluating that, and so I've recently been talking to a few women who've experienced this, and so that's what led me to wanna talk about this today, just to see if we could bring some clarity and some help to some people who are watching.
So, I know you kinda said this, but give me an example of where that you said you talked to some women, where that starts to happen at work.
Where that starts to happen at work is all of a sudden you get assigned a project and you are very good at accomplishing it and it was just good results. And so the next time a project comes around, then someone will come to you and they'll want you to take on that project, the next project, because you were capable with the other one. And so a lot of times it creates this magnetism effect because you are capable. And many times women are resourceful and they're going to figure out how to solve a problem if they're presented with a problem. And so that's not something that's necessarily natural to men. And so they're looking to the wisdom that women bring into a situation, and before you know it, they're taking on too many responsibilities.
Mhm, mhm. Okay, give me an example of in the family how they do that.
In the family, so I was sharing this example recently. Say you go to a holiday dinner and all the extended families together, and all of a sudden, people are talking about mom and dad because mom and dad are aging and nobody really wants to know what to do with them. Okay, so then they look to you and they say, Marsha, what should we do with mom and dad? Should we get a in-home care person to come and take care of them? Should we put them in a home? And all of a sudden, you become the authority and you make a recommendation. Well, everybody else is scared to make a recommendation, and so you've made that suggestion and they're like, okay, yeah, that's great. Well, then the next time a difficult situation comes up, they're going to call you and say, Marsha, because you're the wise person in the family, what do you think we should do here? And so you're all of a sudden become the expert with all the things related to the family.
And then I would even think because you came up with the idea, they would probably start expecting you to execute.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
That happens more often than not.
yeah.
You know, a lot of these young ladies that I'm spending time with get caught into that trap at school. Their young children are in school, elementary school. They're involved in soccer. They're involved in PTA. They're involved in the talent show. And before you know it, they've said yes to so many things that they're not taking time for themselves, and they become stressed because they're capable. They're creative. They can do this. But does that really mean that they should? Should we take on every opportunity that's presented to us? Or do we need to kind of step back and think about, okay, does this align with what I should be doing?
Mhm. This is kind of a little sidebar thing, and we hadn't even talked about this, but I had lunch with my daughter Cassie yesterday, and she was talking about a friend of hers that has 3 daughters. Not sure exactly of their age, but maybe, middle school and elementary school, and it's a really hard school. And she's literally thinking of taking them out and homeschooling them because she says, she's a realtor too. She gets them to school. Then they come home and sometimes they have an hour or 2 of homework. And she's having to say, do your homework. And it's hard homework. And then she's got to get them to dance and soccer and all this. And she said she is seeing family time going to nothing.
Uh-huh.
And this is just part of what you're talking about in a sidebar thing. I think our culture now has just gotten so kittywampus.
Right.
Like when I was a kid, everybody got up and went to either synagogue, church, or whatever they did, and you never called anybody before noon on a Sunday. It was expected. At least our culture growing up in the 60s and 70s. Now they have tournaments all weekend.
All weekend.
And they have, sometimes my grandsons are getting home at 10 o'clock at night from some kind of practice.
Mhm.
And there's not even a chance for family dinner if they wanted to.
Mhm.
And a strong woman's probably trying to manage all that. And it's just crazy. So I kind of thought, I remember loving COVID when it happened because the grandsons live on a golf course. And I'd come over to their house. They'd ride their bicycles. They were like 4 and 6. And they'd ride their bicycles on the cart path, and I would walk fast. And it's because they didn't have to be somewhere all the time. We had so much family
Yeah.
time during that period. It was just amazing and bonding.
Yeah.
And the strong women, we're not in that time anymore, and they're trying to get it all going.
Mhm.
So,
And I think the extension of that too is that, that they're trying to make their children happy. So strong women
Mm.
are also people pleasers. They want to make people happy. They want to make people um, satisfied with what they're doing. And so the children then become a product of that. So the moms are then trying to please the kids by having them in every activity that there is, and they wear themselves out and they're wearing
Yeah.
the kids out without really realizing it. So we're creating this cycle where
Yeah.
we don't pause. We don't think, okay, does this really align with what I'm supposed to be doing?
Yes. Yes, it's easy to get caught up
It's
in.
easy to get caught up in because all of our
Yeah.
friends are doing it. So I'm looked at odd if I'm not doing the same thing that they are. And so it becomes a catch-22.
Yeah, yeah, like, I know my four-year-old granddaughter, if she hadn't maybe at 3, started doing soccer, she wouldn't have known the majority of girls in her pre-K class when it happened and stuff. It's really tough for women these
It is.
days.
It is.
You guys got it rough too, but I'm telling you, it's Woman's Month, so we're cheating, but you need to listen so you'll know what your wife is going through. Okay, so let me think about this. How do you think that messes with our identity?
Well, I think the problem is we're trying to find our identity. So when we're adding things to the schedule, when we're uh, responding to opportunities that are presented to us, we're trying to prove that we're somebody. We're trying to prove our identity. When the truth of the matter is, God created our identity. And if we're not aligning with who that is, then we're burning ourselves out because we're just striving because it's never enough. It will never be enough. Once we recognize who we were created to be, like, for example, I like to cook some. I know that I'm not a really good cook, but if I'm trying to measure up to my friends who are good cooks, I'm never going to measure up, but I'm going to wear myself out trying because I want to be like that other person. And so if I just recognize, okay, part of my strength is encouraging people. That's one of the
Mm,
gifts that God's given to me, and so I love to do that, and so I try to find opportunities everywhere that I go to be an encouragement to people. If I'm not doing that, I know that I'm not satisfied on the inside, and so I think that's one of the things we have to recognize is who were you designed to be? Who were you created to be? What is your place in this world? What is the one thing or the two things that you can do that nobody else can do? Because there are other things that people can do that you can't do. And so recognizing who you were created to be is really important to making sure that you balance your capabilities.
mhm, mhm, and I hope this that was just a whole bunch of nice positives to absorb, so I'm hoping this doesn't squelch them. I talked to a friend the other day, gentleman friend, who he's probably, like, 48 or 49. He just got a divorce. This was his high school sweetheart,
Oh.
and he's shook by it, and she is scrolling all day, going to the country club to play tennis a couple of days a week, and living in a false identity. Talking about identity, because she sees I mean, I'm so thankful we did not grow up in the age
Oh,
of social media.
I'm with you.
You see somebody on a trip I think we don't even measure it like a trip. We go, "I'm not doing that.
Uh-huh.
What's the matter
What's
with
wrong with
me?
me? Uh-huh.
What's the matter with me?
Right.
Look at this person, look at that person." And so our identity is so threatened in this day and time.
Hmm.
And I was feeling real like this the other day going, I don't do social media because number 1, I do it a little bit, but I don't know how to do it. I try to find something and I can't even find it. But I realize I do check my email all the time and my text messages and some stuff like that. So I thought, I'm going to start having hours where I have to put the phone down.
Hmm.
I can check email 3 times a day, things like that. I think that is gonna help. But you're right, identity, it's everything.
It's everything.
And it's so cool because I wanna reiterate what you just said. There is something we're supposed to do that we can do better than anybody else.
Exactly.
Now, I started out as a nurse, and there's a gazillion nurses, but I'm sure there was some aspect of it that I could do better than anybody else.
Absolutely.
And we need to hold on to those identities.
I think
And
the thing too, talking about you being a nurse and that you were really good when you were a nurse, you didn't stay there. You let that opportunity continue to form who you were created to be. Because
yes.
20 years ago, you were supposed to be a nurse, but fast forward 20 years, you're supposed to be helping people with the wisdom that you gained from being a nurse, from helping people know how to eat, from helping people know the impact that food that they have and the way that they eat has on their body. And so it's always a progression. It's not like you're stuck in one thing forever. You've just got to do what's right in front of you. What are your capabilities right now that you can continue to use and express as you grow into the person that you're ultimately becoming?
Mhm.
And that's just it. We're never always there.
Right, right. So what I feel like you said, which I'm trying to interweave, and I think that's why you said it, a lot of the podcasts I'm trying to interweave. We all have a purpose.
Uh-huh.
And we express it through different passions, and each season of life controls that passion.
Yeah.
So I'm like you, I think that's why we get along. I love to motivate people,
Uh-huh.
teach people, things like that. And it was expressed differently through all the like the last season was having Naturally Slim and having a learning management system where people took over 1 million people took the class, and I was teaching them that way. And now I'm teaching you guys stuff this way, or hoping to have guests like you that can teach us something we know. So you're so right on there.
Yeah.
The seasons of life determine, but think about, what is your purpose? What are you good at? And what are you passionate about?
What are the things that people say to you, "Oh my gosh, you're really good at that."
Yeah.
Whether it's cooking, whether it is working on a car, whatever it is. If people say, "Wow, you're really good at that. You're really creative. You really your design ability, you're a fashionista." Okay, focus on that. Use that and see what doors are gonna open up for you there.
Right.
And
Right.
that'll keep you if you know that first, and then you make sure that every opportunity that's presented to you aligns with that, then you're not gonna get overwhelmed. You're not gonna get under pressure. You're not gonna have too many situations where you're having to manage more than you can.
Yeah. And if you're having trouble figuring out what that is, just think, what am I passionate about? What can I get home from work and I can't wait to go do that
Yeah.
or listen to it?
Or what
Oh,
brings you the greatest joy.
yes.
Mhm.
Yes, exactly. So it seems like high capacity women tend to solve problems even faster.
It seems like they do, and that's because they're always presented with problems and they are resourceful. I said that earlier, that women are just naturally resourceful to solve problems because we have to. And so once we start solving these problems, we become more confident, and so then we can solve those problems faster. So then that begets more opportunities presented to us to be able to solve those problems.
Mhm. Okay. I have in my notes, well, let me say that it seems like women who are capable, they stay calm under pressure. What do you think about that?
I think a lot of times, when you find a capable woman, a lot of the times she is going to be calm under pressure because she's learned how to self regulate. And that's another opportunity that presents itself to capable women because a lot of times people don't know how to self regulate. They may get into a situation that is a little bit chaotic and a little bit unsettled. And so they're going to look for the most calm person in the room. They're going to gravitate to that person to be able to help them solve it because they don't know how to self-regulate. So they see someone who's self-regulating. And so they're like, okay, that person obviously is the smartest person in the room. May or may not be, but because she's learned how to stay calm under pressure and not create and add drama to the situation, she's going to be a lot more sought out to solve problems.
I started laughing because I thought, as a nurse, you're taught to stay calm when things get crazy.
Uh-huh.
And John and I were in church one day, and the lady in front of us passed out, and I caught her. And I was immediately checking her pulse and checking it and doing this and doing that. And John was like, "What?" He didn't know me as well then.
Uh-huh.
It's like those kind of women, like you're talking about. They're like, "I'm not going to get unraveled. I'm going to say, what do we need to do here? How can we solve this? What's up?" Bless their hearts.
Bless their heart.
So, how do we audit the decisions before we make them? Like, or how about boundaries?
Yeah. I think one of the things that we need to practice, that I think, and I'm speaking to myself here, is pause. When we're presented with an opportunity, just pause and say, okay, where is this aligning with what my purpose is? Where is this taking me to the next step on the journey that I know that I'm called to be? I think another thing, we talked in a recent episode about goals, what your goals are, making declarations and setting your goals and achieving your goals. If you don't have those, then you don't know how to determine if what opportunity you're being presented aligns with what you're being asked to do. So I think the first and foremost thing is you've got to have a season where you just say, okay, what do I want to accomplish in the next 30, 60, 90, 365 days? What are those things? What are my 5-year goals? What are my 10-year goals? Once you know that, then when you're presented with an opportunity, you can say, okay, does this align with where I see myself in 90 days, in 365 days, in 5 years? And if the answer is no, then you can say, not right now. That opportunity doesn't, it's not conducive to where I'm going right now at
Mhm.
this particular point. If it does, then you could say yes. Okay, but here's my bandwidth to do that. It does align with my goal, but I'm going to align that with my calendar to make sure that I'm not putting too many things on my calendar.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. In fact, I'll interject right there and say, a long time ago, I had to start to say, "Is this my burden to carry?"
Uh-huh.
Because my mom, who knows all the psychology stuff, has many times said, "You're a rescuer," and I'll think, "Oh, she's right. I got to go rescue everything and everyone,"
Mhm.
and maybe that's not my burden to carry. And, so we were talking earlier, you and I, like my daughters have kids in elementary school. And, "Will you be the room mom? Will you bring the cupcakes? Will you bring that?" I know my nature is to wanna say yes for everything because I feel like I always have to do my share. I have to pull my load. But then once I said, "Is baking the cupcakes my burden to carry?" I thought, "I'm really not that good of a cook. I'm trying to take on everything, and there's a lot of women in here that cook more than I do. Maybe they'll have cupcakes with sprinkles."
Mhm.
But what do you think about that aspect in work and everything else? How do you
I
perceive it?
I think that's a really good point, because just because you're capable doesn't mean you should. So there's a lot of factors that come into play there. If you spent 2 hours baking cupcakes, but you're more effective in another area at that particular point in time in your life, being a nurse, which one is more fulfilling to you? So a lot of times if we say yes to something, it's going to steal time and energy from us from being able to do what we really should be doing, that's going to cause a greater impact. I'm not saying cupcakes don't cause an impact. Kids love them.
The kids love them.
The
Yeah.
teachers are grateful for you to bring them, I think, as long as they eat them at the end of the day. Um, but you just have to look and see, okay, where's my greatest impact in this particular season of my life? What should I be doing? I think the other thing is, just because I can do something doesn't mean that I should. One of the things that I like to do is, if I'm presented with an opportunity that sounds good, but maybe it's not in perfect alignment. Okay, who in my world, who is in my garden that is better at that, like you said, but maybe needs a mentor to help encourage them to take that step, to take that opportunity to maybe grow in that particular area. If I've got a young lady that I'm meeting with, and I know that she's extremely passionate about graphic arts, and then I have an opportunity to create some graphics for a book cover or a website or whatever, and I know I am not creative, then I call her and I say, "Hey, would you be willing to do this?" And she can do it in a minute and loves it. Whereas if I was doing it, my palms would sweat and I would hate every minute of it. And
Yeah.
so just because I maybe could doesn't mean that I should. And I think
Yeah.
that's another thing that we need to think about. I think the other thing too is, do I need to make the decision, or can I defer the decision? Do I need to make the decision right now about the opportunity that's presented? Or do I just defer that and say, that may be a good idea, but I'm not in a position right now to make that decision. And so you haven't said no, you haven't said yes. You're giving yourself time to audit, to think about, is this my opportunity?
I love that one because I eventually learned that one, like, "I'm not sure, but I'll get back with you within 1 or 2 days."
Yes.
Because right then I wanna say, "Sure,"
Uh,
but it's like, "No, get some time alone and assess, is this my burden to carry or
exactly.
not?" So that is good. Yeah.
Exactly.
Um, so any other things you can think about that we can do to help us make good decisions?
I think pausing, one of the
Love the
things,
pause. That's good.
pausing to just breathe and not have to immediately react. Another thing that I like, and one of the guests that you had on your show, Ellen Bailey, talked about a personal board of directors.
Yeah.
So you don't have to do this with every opportunity that's presented to you, but one of the things that you can do is the multitude of counselors, people that know you, they know what you're called to do, they know what your alignment is. Just present it to them. I had an opportunity just this week where somebody reached out and said, "Hey, we'd love for you to be a host table at this fundraiser, and invite people and raise money and all that kind of stuff," which I love the organization because it's helping women. But then I reached out to a couple people that are in my circle and I said, "What do you think about this? This is what I'm thinking." And so they came back with alternatives that were just as good, but weren't going to require as much of my time, energy, or resources to be able to do that. And so I think having people in your life that you can say, "What do you think about this?" is real important too, because it keeps us from reacting and making a decision real quick that's going to put more pressure on us.
I like that. Okay. So the women that are around, are they weak?
I don't think they're weak. I think that they just don't have a structure for all the things that are presented to them, which is what we've been really talking about is how do you create structure around the opportunities that you've been given? Because you're going to be presented with opportunities all the time. But in order to protect yourself, protect your family, protect your just what your future is, you've got to be able to say, okay, I'm gonna have some structure around this. I'm gonna make sure that this aligns with what I'm called to do, what I know that my purpose is right now. And it may not always be just like you talked about seasons. I love your story about how you started as a nurse practitioner, then you started Naturally Slim. Well, those were principles, but your healthcare background really helped to support what those principles were.
Yeah.
And so through your relationships with people that you met through Naturally Slim, it's brought you to helping people in other ways grow in wisdom, faith, and action through Insights with Marsha. So it's all a journey. And remember that it's all a journey that we're called to make a difference. We're called to have an impact, but where you have an impact is going to be more fruitful if you're aligned with what you're called to do.
I love that. Yes. Okay. I think I feel it's getting close to summing it up. So why don't we hadn't talked about this. Why don't we think of a like 3-point, 4-point, whatever protocol or coping mechanism to tell people, Ronna, will you host a table for me? What's step one we're going to tell capable women? Because you are definitely a capable woman. What's step one?
Let me get back with you on that, Marsha. I love the idea. I love the organization that you're representing. Let me get back with you on that. And then I take a step back and I actually pray and ask the Lord if He's got any specific direction for me. Then I meet with a couple of my people, call my people on the phone and say, I'm presented with this opportunity. Do you think that this is a good step for me in this season? And what I like to do, and I don't think I've ever said this before, I say that I like to talk to 3 or 4 different people. And what I find when I talk to 3 or 4 different people is they won't all have the same answer, but the theme of what they're saying will almost always be the same. And so that really helps me because you're not looking for a, yes, you need to do this from all 4 people that you're talking to. You're looking for a theme of what they're saying. So they'll either indicate that, yes, that's a good direction, but you maybe need to modify it a little bit, or they'll indicate, I don't think this is a season for you. And it will sound different from each person, but it tells me what I need to know. So I love that. So talking with those people, if those people are in agreement that this is a good opportunity, then I check my schedule. Does this fit with my schedule, everything that I've already committed to? And then if the answer is yes, it fits with my schedule, I'm not going to be overcommitted. Then I reach back out to the person that invited me to be the host and I say, I'd love to. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
And then you go have fun.
Right. And so that process can take anywhere from 24 to 48 hours. Here's the other thing that my grandmother told me. One of the most important things that she told me was the Holy Spirit never makes you rush. If you feel rushed to make a decision, it's not a good decision. You need to just pause and sit on it before you make a final decision.
That's what Miss Spontaneity needed to hear. I'm like, let's do it. Let's do it.
And that has guided me well so many times in my life. If I feel like I'm being pressured to make a decision, I just take a step back. And if they're requiring an answer before I feel like that I can give that, then the answer is no, because you never have to be rushed into a decision.
I like that. I like that. Okay, so to recap, I'll get back with you. I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to pray about it. I'm going to ask 3 or 4 advisors. I'm going to look for the theme, check my schedule, and then go have fun with it. And if it doesn't, and here I'm adding to it, if it doesn't sound like fun, don't do it.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. Life's supposed to be fun. It's too daggone short.
Too short. Yeah.
Yes, we want to do what we want to do, and we want to be powerful women. And if we're not happy, we're not very powerful women.
Yeah. Yeah, we've gotta take that joy that is in our heart and spread it to other people because there's so many people that are not walking in joy, and if I can't do something that's bringing joy to me, then there's no way that I could spread that to other people.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's the hokiest analogy. The oxygen mask comes down, put it on yourself first, but your kids, your family, your spouse are going to be so much happier if you're a happy person.
If you're a happy person.
And only you have the power to make yourself a happy person.
Absolutely. Boy, that's a powerful point.
I believe there's no victims unless somebody ran into you with their car. You could kind of be a victim that way, but otherwise, we are in control of our lives. We are in control of our destiny, and I'm not giving my power away to anybody.
That's exactly right,
Not
which
doing it.
circles back around to the forgiveness, because if you're holding unforgiveness toward a person, you're giving them power
So true. You're giving them
make your
power
life
over you
uncomfortable.
to make you happy or not happy. You just gave your power away.
Yeah.
I like that frame on it because I'm all about not giving my power
Yeah.
away.
Absolutely.
Interesting. Okay. All right. All right. Anything else?
That's all I've got today,
Okay.
Marsha.
Well, we're already thinking of some ideas for some future stuff. So thanks for being with us here for Women's History Month. And ladies, let's just keep making history.